righty, everybody. Welcome back to this week's today's edition of the KSL.com Game Center podcast. It is Tuesday, February 7th, and we are once again joined by Jacob Nielson, joining us from up in Logan, Utah, to talk Aggie basketball. It was a big week last week. It'll be another even bigger week this week. As we kind of introduced last week, the Aggies were heading into this very important stretch of the season, final month or so, with 4 really big home games against the top 4 teams in the Mountain West. And we're able to get the job done in kind of chapter 1, as it were, last week against New Mexico, then got a road win against Colorado State. But tomorrow, the chapter 2 and an even bigger challenge awaits them against number 25 San Diego State. So we wanted to bring back Jacob to talk about what happened last week, but also preview what's going to be a really big game tomorrow as well. So here we are 1 week later, Jacob. We talked about what it would take for the Aggies to get that win last week. Do you feel like things kind of went according to plan, or were you surprised at all, I guess, by how things went against those 2 teams last week?
About as good of a week as you can ask for from a team that's on the bubble, that's trying to fight in the conference standings. I mean, it went really well. The first thing that happened was Nevada Tuesday night last week defeated San Diego State. And so that just kind of narrowed the conference race, because San Diego State, they had one loss to New Mexico, but they were kind of rolling. And then losing that game in Reno, it's like, oh man, like in the standings, things are attainable, right? And then obviously the way Utah State performed against New Mexico, especially in the first half last week, it was their best performance of the season. And one of the things, obviously Utah State, they hang their hats on their offense. They're 12th nationally in adjusted offensive efficiency. They are the best three-point shooting team in the nation at 40.8%, which is really impressive considering the quality defenses that they have to face in the Mountain West Conference. And they really just were on full display offensively against New Mexico, but they brought the defensive intensity, which is something we don't always see from this team. I mean, they have the effort, it's there, but there's something about college basketball and playing defense that it requires so much toughness, both physically but also mentally, every single possession. And it's something that I think the Aggies lose track of. I don't think it's a lack of effort in the sense that they're not battling every possession on the court, but to really slow down these great offenses such as New Mexico or Boise State or Nevada, you got to not only have that effort on the end, but you have to rise to the challenge. And that's something they did against New Mexico in that first half, was they executed the game plan perfectly with New Mexico. They love the mid-range shot. They love attacking the hoop. And their 2 big guys, whether it was Trevin Dorius and Dan Atkin or Taylor Funk, those guys, they were stalwarts down there. They stuck down. They let the big guys stay open on the arc and just kind of stuck down there. The guards were able to size up Jalen House and Jamal Mashburn and force them into tough shots. And it was really that first 20 minutes of the first half, it was a defensive clinic. And the result was massive. They had a 19-point lead. They led 47-28, I believe it was, at halftime. And when you build a lead like that at home, it doesn't matter who you're playing, unless you're Weber State, because then Weber State's going to come back and beat you on your home court. That's what they saw in December. But I mean, the way they played, they just physically dominated New Mexico for an entire half of basketball. And even though New Mexico outscored them in the second half, it was too much to overcome. And so I think we saw that Utah State at their best. They do have the ability, the talent, the physicality to play solid defense. And especially when they do that, the offense is going to come, because they're great in the pick and roll. They're great in the dribble drive. But when they're getting defensive stops, they're able to get down the court in transition. And that's when they're best, and that's what we saw on Wednesday night last week.
Yeah, those are really good points about, the offense. I didn't realize that about the 3-point percentage that they were leading the nation. So there's your, important stat nugget of the day. Utah State leading the nation in 3-point percentage. Kind of reminds me of a BYU squad 3 years ago, I guess now. Mark Pope's first year at BYU, they led the nation in 3-point percentage. So something in the water out here in Utah just really helps that the 3-point shooting, I guess. But yeah, you talk about offense. Obviously, a great outing against New Mexico with 84 points, but then they top that on the road against Colorado State with 88 points. Um, you know, Stephen Ashworth, 26 points, pretty impressive performance from him. And we talked about him a lot last week and how he's kind of, the heart and soul. He's that this team will go as far as he goes, and he showed up in a really impressive road win. Maybe let's just kind of chat about that. It was a great win for Utah State at Colorado State, but also some kind of off the court stuff that was not as great happening with some chants directed at Max Shulga. I'm just kind of curious. I know you wrote about it for KSL, but just kind of what you've heard, in the aftermath these last few days about kind of how the team and university has kind of reacted to what happened there in that road match.
Yeah, regarding the Max Shulga thing, obviously an offensive chant coming from some Colorado State students, and that this was something that it was caught on the broadcast that you can hear the chant. So in terms of being a controversy and, oh, did this actually happen? There were Colorado State fans in the arena that said, oh, well, we didn't hear it. You can hear it on TV, right? Like you can hear it on the radio broadcast. Scott Gerard, who's the radio announcer for Utah State basketball, he was the one that first reported it publicly on Twitter. And it wasn't the entire student section. It's not like 1,000 fans were chanting, but pretty much if you missed it, Max Shulga, native of Ukraine, obviously the ongoing Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and these students, while he was at the free throw line at the end of the game, they started chanting Russia at him to try to throw him off, which, needless to say, is wildly inappropriate. And I think it was just a handful of students, and I know the reaction from the team, from people I talked to, was definitely disgust, and they were really unhappy. But at the same time, Colorado State's a program that Utah State has a lot of respect for, which I don't know if that can be said about every team in the conference. I won't say specific names, but Colorado State and Nico Medved, their head coach, the Aggies think really, really highly of those guys, right? And it's a quality program, and I don't think that the actions of few represent what that university stands for and stuff. And leading the way in that was Max Shulga, because Max on Sunday released a statement. I don't have it in front of me. Let's see if I can pull it up really quick. But in the statement, he pretty much was like, hey, like I was deeply, here it is right here. So he says, I would like to thank Colorado State administration and Coach Medved for the immediate support and understanding. He said, this has been an extremely difficult and challenging year with my family. And then he goes on to say, for the chance last night, while extremely upsetting in the moment, I also know how emotion can run high during competition, and people can do and say things they do not really mean. Colorado State and its fans have apologized, and I accept and appreciate the apology. So, I mean, really, really tremendous for Max Shulga to take the high road in the situation. I don't think he was required to do that. If he was really angry and bitter, I think he would have had every right in the situation, because it's deeply offensive, because what he's gone through, what his nation has gone through this year, for people to make light of that and to try to use it to throw him off in a basketball game is just awful, right? But really, really cool that he took the high road, that he forgave. And so I think that's been able to help the team, I think, move on from the issue. It's not much of a distraction anymore. It's something that happened, and potentially some good's coming out of it too, because I know that different organizations that are helping Ukraine and helping Americans with Ukraine ties this has gotten on their radar. I received an email from my story from an individual that is part of a charity, and pass forward that on to the director of ops at Utah State. And so hopefully it can turn into some benefits, some support for Shulga and his family, and maybe some NIL opportunities that the fan base pursues that. So I think really disappointing occurrence, but something that good people in this world are responding to in appropriate ways, and it's going to hopefully in the long run be something that we can grow from and be better as a society.
Yeah, it's not very often that you see an appropriate measured response to something so wildly inappropriate as you said. So I think that is good to see, both on the part of Shulga and those who have reacted well to what happened there. And offensive offensive chance aside, the winning on the road like they did, I think was pretty impressive, and it's something that they're gonna have to do down the stretch. If the Aggies, have any chance to get into the tournament. Currently still listed as one of the last four out, according to Joe Lunardi's bracketology. Something that I found really fascinating was that two of the last four teams in right now are Mountain West teams in Nevada and Boise State. So it's really just a fascinating time to kind of be in the Mountain West and following Mountain West basketball, which can kind of lead us to what's going on tomorrow in Logan, which is a huge matchup against San Diego State, who's leading the conference. They are, as of right now, locked to get into the tournament, ranked currently in the top 25, the Aztecs. Last week, it was Spectrum Magic, I believe. Tomorrow, I think I saw in your tweets that the theme has something to do with rock stars. So I guess what's kind of the vibe and energy heading into this top 25 showdown tomorrow?
Well, Caleb, the first thing I want to mention is regarding, you mentioned Joe Lunardi in the brackets, and it's really interesting because I don't know if this is factual or not, but there's kind of a belief that regarding him and ESPN, the fact that Utah State doesn't have the Mountain West Conference is not under contract with ESPN, so they don't show any of their games, and so there's kind of a sentiment within the conference that like Joe Lunardi isn't somebody that's going to give the Aggies or the rest of the conference a ton of respect. So in that regard, the fact that Utah State's in the conversation, even if they're on the other side of the bubble, is really a good sign. Jerry Palm, CBS, has Utah State in the field, as do other bracketologists, and it's really, they're solidly on the bubble in most places, right? Either first four in or first four out. But that leads us into this week. And if you can beat Colorado State, which is 22 in the net, quad one team, nationally ranked, they're number 25 in the country. I mean, that's a win that puts you pretty decidedly on the right side of the bubble. That it's one that's hard to ignore, especially after beating New Mexico in as dominant fashion as they did. And you win this game. San Diego State leads the conference right now. I believe they're 9-2. Utah State's 8-3. You win this game, you're tied with San Diego State for first in the conference. So one of the best seasons that the Mountain West has ever had. And you're telling the Aggies that, hey, coming towards the end of the season here, 7 games left. You win this one, you're at the top of the standings going down the stretch. And not only that, but the rest of the schedule is pretty favorable for the Aggies. They have 2 really tough road games against San Jose State and UNLV. But besides that, they're home against Air Force. They're home against Nevada. They're home against Boise State. And so, I mean, tough matchups, but the biggest games remain at home. So, I mean, that sets up really favorably because, I mean, San Diego State, they still have to go on the road to Boise State, on the road to New Mexico. And so in that sense, it's really big. Well, what's interesting is the promotion. I want to speak my mind, and the fact that I'm still a student up here, sometimes I'll tee the line between like just pure journalism versus I'm gonna weigh my opinion on some of these fan crowd things because I know the herd and how they operate. And so I wasn't shy yesterday to speak my mind. And biggest game of the year, top 25 team, massive showdown for all the reasons I just mentioned. And the move is, let's dress up like rock stars. Like that. That's very, very high school like, very, I thought, a little bit immature. I thought that it was maybe a deal with Rockstar energy drinks because they're handing out free Rockstars, so maybe it was like
Oh boy.
a contract thing. Turns out the Rockstars were coming. The free energy drinks were coming no matter what. They just decided like, hey, like let's just build off this and make an event. But here's the thing, Caleb. After I tweeted it, I got some feedback from some people in the herd, some happy, some unhappy, but they deleted the post.
Wow, that's some influence you have there, Jacob. Watch
I,
out.
I guess I moved the needle up here in Logan. I don't know how, but they deleted the post, and I was told that it's in the air whether or not they actually do the Rockstar theme. So the day before the game, not the greatest marketing to delete it and not immediately replace it with something else. So I'm not totally sure what's going on there.
Oh boy.
But I will say this: the herd is, whether they're dressed up as rock stars or they're wearing blue or whatever it is, they're gonna be there. They're gonna be loud. I had a friend who, she's a political science major, and she was telling me yesterday her class of 40 people, upper class political science, not the biggest sporty types, just like really intelligent human beings. The teacher went on a this is word to mouth. She said the teacher went on a 10-minute rant to the students about the importance of this game and broke down, explained to them in primary terms just what the quad wins mean, the race in the conference, and said the teacher implored the entire class and said, you guys have to go to this game. And that's kind of what I've been hearing from. It's there's a really good basketball culture up here, obviously, and the people that totally understand the breadth of this game are making it clear to everybody else, like, hey, like we gotta pack the Spectrum. So no Spectrum Magic promotion with free T-shirts, but I don't think that's going to matter. I think that San Diego State's a team that moves the needle, especially with a ranking in front of them. Place is going to be packed, especially the student section. Rockstar theme or not, it's going to be a rowdy night on Wednesday, and yeah, we're going to see what they're going to be able to do.
And there might not be free T-shirts, but there's gonna be free Rockstar energy drinks. So
you're gonna get a bunch of sober undergrads all jacked up on caffeine. The herd's crazy enough already. You get that juice flowing in them. Who knows what's gonna happen?
Where does Rockstar rank on your rankings of energy drinks, Jacob?
I myself am not much of an energy drink guy.
Yeah, me neither.
I would put Red Bull in front of them if I had to.
There you go.
Talk,
yeah.
But I'm good with a nice Dr. Pepper. I don't need anything more than that. I'm already crazy enough as is.
Well said. Appreciate it. So yeah, big one for sure. Like you said, as we mentioned last week, basketball school, basketball city, right? Like I'm glad to hear, that just warms my heart. When college sports are being talked about in the classroom, that's just when things come full circle, right? And everybody buys in. You just really love to see that. So
absolutely,
I'm super excited for that matchup. Should be awesome. Yeah, I mean this could certainly, as you said, put Utah State on the right side of the bubble. Whether or not there's the ESPN bias or not. So that'll be certainly very fun to watch. And I'm sure we'll be talking again next week as we head into once again, a very important matchup at home, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday against Nevada at home, who is currently listed as one of the teams also on the bubble. So just a lot of great matchups going on in the Mountain West.
Caleb, can I add one more thing about this game before you let me go? Utah State obviously has played San Diego State already, and this is the first game, the first rematch they've had against a team that they lost to. And in that game down in San Diego, Utah State, they've never won in Viejas Arena in Mountain West play since they joined the conference in 2012, and it went as poorly as it always does. But that this team has definitely a chip on their shoulder because in that game they were dominated in that first half. They went down by as many as 20 points, ended up climbing back, only lost by 10, had a good offensive showing, lost 85-75. But they felt like it was a fluke. I was talking to Trevin Dorius for a story that'll drop tomorrow, and he said they beat us physically, but we don't think that that was a representation of who we are as a team. And this isn't a quote for quote, but this is summing up what he was telling me. And he was pretty much like, hey, like, we're going to show the world tomorrow that we mean business. And so, yeah, I mean, this team's always riled up, but San Diego State team, they have a ton of respect for, really, really good team, but they were embarrassed down there in San Diego. And that was only 2 weeks ago, right? So they are going to come into this one, obviously all the massive stakes, but at the same time, the pride is on the line too. And they want to avenge what the Aztecs did to them not that long ago. So it's gonna be a battle. Expect just the physicality that is the Mountain West Conference to be full-fledged. And yeah, we're gonna see. I mean, it's looking like Ken Palm has Utah State as a 2-point favorite, right? So I mean, it could go either way statistically. So it's going to be a good one up here in the spectrum.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the ESPN bias spills over into their analytics or not, but it's currently a 50-50 pick 'em based on their matchup predictor on ESPN. So yeah, as you mentioned, very 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 closely projected matchup. Should be a big one. Hopefully, that energy that you mentioned, comes out in a positive way, and does not spill over. I know there was a bit of a conflict in the women's game up at Utah State last week. So hopefully it doesn't spill over into that into any kind of a physical altercation.
Certainly, yeah. That things got a little out of hand. That Nevada Utah State women's game last week. hopefully the fisticuffs don't start flying.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on again, Jacob. We'll look forward to your coverage tomorrow. It should be, just an amazing evening up in Logan. So make sure you guys are stay tuned to everything that Jacob's doing, and we'll catch you next time on the KSL.com Game Center podcast.